Spencer Greene, and I'm here to talk to you about how to decide which projects are suitable for remote engineering in what sequence. A lot of literature has been written about remote engineering, outsourcing, so forth. A lot of people do these kinds of projects. It's ubiquitous in the industry, but I've never seen a good description of how you should choose what projects are the most suitable for outsourcing and in what order you should do those sorts of projects. So we've developed what we call the description execution matrix, and I want to describe it for you today. So the description execution matrix has on one dimension how hard it is to describe something to a remote team. We measure that in terms of easy, medium, hard, and impossible. There's always some things that you say, you know what, this, I really have to touch it, I have to feel it, I have to work with people together. That's going to be very difficult to explain to someone who's in a different location. And the other dimension is the project size. So there are projects that may be completed in hours, up to days, weeks, months, and years. So we're going to look at different types of projects in terms of where they fit on this matrix. And we're going to start with things that are impossible to describe to remote teams. So we're going to call that our no-go zone. You know, if you can't describe it to someone, if you don't really know what it is yourself, or if there's other reasons, maybe it's classified information, things like that, then you really can't think of that as a project that's suitable for a remote engineering team. Now, it is possible to break down some of those things and take pieces of those projects, which are easier to explain, and make those suitable for remote engineering. But the project as a whole wouldn't be a thing that you would send out to a remote team of any sort. Now, for other sorts of projects, we're thinking now about what can we send to a remote team. A remote team could be a remote team which is your own staff in a location which is different from your core location, different from where your product managers sit, different from where the rest of your engineering team sits. Or it could be an outsourced shop that's doing work for you on a contract basis. So the first thing to look at here is what I call the IDGDIM line, or the I'll just do it myself line. So that's right here, and that represents if it's something which, as it gets harder and harder to explain, you don't want to take a project which is very hard to explain and is a short duration project and send that to someone outside, right? If you're going to take trouble to explain something to someone outside, then you need to get a certain amount of work done by them before it actually makes sense. So the IDGDIM line, I'll just do it myself, below that is the not worth it sign. It's just not worth it to explain to a third party or to a remote team when it's quicker to do the project yourself. Above that is the big vast zone of where most projects live. Now when you get started with remote engineering, and this could be that you're bringing up a new team of your own employees, you're engaging with a new third-party vendor, maybe you don't have experience doing this sort of thing in the past, or even if you do, but it's a different vendor from what you've worked with before. You want to begin with a project which is relatively straightforward to explain. So start with something which is pretty easy to convey what the requirements are and what the expectations are, and something which can be done in a short number of weeks. That's going to build confidence, it'll help you work through some of the issues on both sides. Pretty quickly after that, you can move into this context zone, which can take somewhere between 3 and 12 months to work through the context zone. The context zone consists of projects which are sort of medium difficulty to explain to a remote team, and which can last for weeks to months. The important thing in the context zone is that the remote team is actually learning through this entire period how your organization works, how your code base works, what are some of the terminologies and languages that you use that are specific to your business, and some of the things that you actually take for granted that you probably haven't documented explicitly, but that someone else needs to understand to work with you effectively. Working through the context zone is the most important factor in having a successful relationship with the remote engineering team. Now, the path from the context zone actually can go one of two ways. I have here what I call the tactical zone and the strategic zone. Now, you would think that maybe you move always to the tactical zone followed by the strategic zone, but that's not in fact the case. You can actually jump to either direction once you've completed the context zone. So once the remote team understands the context, knows how your organization works, understands your code base, then the tactical zone is where you might manage that remote team by giving them projects one at a time. You might staff up and staff down in the remote team rapidly to meet changing demands. And the remote team has got a lot of flexibility, but doesn't have a lot of forward visibility to what's happening. And they're going to invest to a limited extent, but not the extent that they would in the strategic zone. In the strategic zone, you're actually working with that team over a period of multiple years where you actually look ahead and you can say, this is our roadmap, We want to make sure that you're staffed appropriately for that roadmap. We want you to make investments with us. And at eInfochips, we've had great success managing engagements over a multiple year period in either the tactical zone or the strategic zone. So this has been our explanation of the description execution matrix, how to choose which projects to sequence in which order for remote engineering. And we encourage you to visit us online at eInfochips.com for more information. Thank you so much.